The sun hung low over the vast Montana plains like a fiery medallion pinned to the endless blue sky, casting long shadows across the golden fields of wheat that swayed gently in the breeze. I, Eliza Hawthorne, had arrived in this untamed wilderness just 3 weeks prior, fleeing the suffocating grip of my family's expectations back in Boston. At 24, I was no delicate flower. I'd grown up riding horses on our estate, but nothing prepared me for the raw, untethered freedom of the Wild West. My uncle's ranch, Whispering Pines, was supposed to be a temporary refuge, a place to clear my head after rejecting yet another arranged suitor who saw me as little more than a pretty accessory for his arm. Little did I know, this land would reshape me, body and soul, through the hands of a man named Jack Harlan, the rugged rancher who owned the neighboring spread. Jack was a legend in these parts, tall, broad-shouldered, with a beard that framed his chiseled jaw and eyes as piercing as a hawk's. He wore his cowboy hat tilted just so, a red bandana around his neck, and a holster that spoke of dangers I'd only read about in dime novels. Our first encounter happened by accident, or perhaps fate, when my horse bolted during a storm, throwing me into a muddy ravine. There he was, galloping in on his chestnut stallion, Thunder, scooping me up with arms like iron bands. "Easy there, miss," he'd growled, his voice deep and gravelly, sending shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. He carried me back to his cabin, where he tended my sprained ankle with surprising gentleness, his calloused fingers brushing my skin in ways that made my heart race. Over the next days, as I recovered at Whispering Pines, Jack visited often, ostensibly to check on the boundary fences but really to steal glances and share stories of cattle drives and showdowns with outlaws. He spoke of the land like it was a living thing, wild and demanding, much like himself. I found myself drawn to him, this man who lived by his own rules, far from the polished drawing rooms I knew. One evening, as the sun dipped below the distant mountains, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jack invited me for a ride. "You've ridden before, but not like this," he said with a smirk, helping me onto Thunder's back. I sat in front, his strong body pressed behind mine, his arms encircling me to hold the reins. The horse's powerful muscles rippled beneath us as we trotted out into the open prairie, the wind whipping my hair free from its spins. It was exhilarating, the speed, the closeness, the way his breath warmed my neck. We rode harder, faster, the world blurring into a tapestry of earth and sky. I'd never felt so alive, so unbound. But as the stars began to prick the darkening heavens, Jack pulled us to a halt by a crystal-clear stream, dismounting and offering his hand. "Eliza," he said, his voice husky, "this land changes a person. Makes you see what you really want." His eyes locked on mine, and in that moment, I knew he wasn't just talking about the ride. He wanted me not as a trophy, but as a partner in this wild life. The thought terrified and thrilled me. Back at the ranch that night, I tossed in my bed, replaying every touch, every word. My uncle noticed my distraction the next morning over breakfast, chuckling as he sipped his coffee. "That Harlan boy's got his eye on you, girl. Be careful, he's as stubborn as they come." But caution was the last thing on my mind. Days turned into a whirlwind of stolen moments, Jack teaching me to lasso a calf, his hands guiding mine, sharing picnics under ancient oaks where he'd recount tales of his youth, orphaned young and forging his path through sheer grit. He spoke of building a legacy, a family to carry on the ranch. "I ain't one for fancy words, but you'd make a fine wife for a man like me," he confessed one afternoon, as we watched a herd of mustangs thunder across the horizon. My cheeks flushed. Marriage to a rancher? My Boston friends would gasp in horror. Yet, here, it felt right, like the missing piece of a puzzle I'd never known was incomplete. But shadows loomed. Word reached us of rustlers plaguing the area, stealing cattle under the cover of night. Jack's face hardened when he heard, his jaw set like stone. "I'll handle it," he vowed, but I saw the worry in his eyes. That night, as a full moon bathed the plains in silver light, I sneaked out to meet him at the old barn. We talked for hours, his head resting against mine, the scent of hay and leather enveloping us. "Stay with me, Eliza," he whispered. "Let me show you a life you've never imagined." His kiss was fierce, claiming, igniting a fire within me that burned away my doubts. But as dawn broke, gunshots echoed in the distance. The rustlers had struck. Jack mounted Thunder, rifle in hand, and rode off with his men, leaving me breathless with fear. Hours stretched into agony as I paced the porch, praying for his return. When he finally appeared, bloodied but victorious, relief flooded me. He pulled me into his arms, murmuring, "This is my world, darling. Dangerous, but worth it. Will you share it?" I nodded, tears streaming, but deep down, I wondered if I was ready for the storms ahead. The rustlers were just the beginning, whispers of a larger gang, led by a notorious outlaw named Black Bart, circulated through town. Jack's ranch was prime target, rich with prime stock. As we prepared defenses, fortifying fences and posting guards, our bond deepened. We rode together daily now, his lessons turning me from a novice to a capable hand. One particularly grueling day, we chased a stray bull across rocky terrain, Thunder carrying us both with ease. My dress hiked up in the wind, my laughter mingling with his as we finally roped the beast. "See, you've got the spirit," he praised, his hand lingering on my waist. That evening, by a campfire under a canopy of stars, he proposed properly, kneeling with a simple gold band that had been his mother's. "Marry me, Eliza. Be my wife, my equal in this wild land." My heart soared, but before I could answer, a rider burst into camp with news: Black Bart's men were coming for revenge. The chapter of peace was ending, a battle loomed that would test us both. As Jack rallied his crew, I realized this ride, our ride, was just beginning, fraught with peril and passion. Would I say yes? Only time and the untamed West would tell. The crack of dawn brought tension thicker than the morning mist rolling off the distant hills, as Jack and I stood side by side on the ranch's overlook, scanning the horizon for any sign of Black Bart's gang. The previous night's proposal hung between us like an unspoken promise, my fingers still tingling from where he'd slipped the ring on experimentally before tucking it away. "We'll finish this properly once the dust settles," he'd said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying the storm within. I'd nodded, my resolve hardening. I'd come to this land seeking escape, but now I was fighting for a future I desperately wanted. The ranch buzzed with activity, hands sharpening knives, loading rifles, and herding cattle into safer pastures. Jack's leadership was mesmerizing. He moved with the grace of a predator, issuing commands that men followed without question. "Eliza, you stay back at the house," he ordered, but I shook my head fiercely. "I'm no wilting violet, Jack. Teach me to shoot." His laugh was short, but pride flickered in his gaze as he handed me a revolver, spending the morning drilling me on aim and reload. My shots improved quickly, the recoil jarring but empowering. As the sun climbed higher, a dust cloud appeared in the distance, riders, at least a dozen, thundering toward us. "Here they come," Jack muttered, signaling his men to positions. I mounted Thunder with him, insisting on riding out to meet the threat. "Together," I whispered, and he relented, our bodies sinking as the horse surged forward. The confrontation unfolded in a blur of chaos, shouts, gunfire, horses rearing. Black Bart, a hulking figure with a scarred face and a black hat pulled low, led the charge, his voice booming demands for surrender. Jack fired first, dropping one outlaw from his saddle, sparking a frenzy. Bullets whizzed past as Thunder dodged and weaved, Jack's arm steady around me while I took careful shots, wounding another assailant. The air filled with acrid smoke and the metallic tang of blood. One of Jack's men fell, crying out, but we pressed on, driving the gang back. In the heat of battle, Bart targeted us directly, his horse barreling straight at Thunder. Jack spurred us aside just in time, but the impact threw me off balance. I tumbled to the ground, rolling in the dirt as pain shot through my side. Jack leaped down, shielding me with his body, his gun blazing. "Stay down," he yelled, but I grabbed my fallen revolver and fired, hitting Bart's shoulder. The outlaw reeled, cursing, before signaling retreat. His gang scattered like shadows at dawn, leaving behind wounded and dust. As silence descended, Jack helped me up, his hands checking for injuries. "You all right, darling?" His concern melted into relief as I assured him I was bruised but unbroken. We tended the wounded, burying the fallen with somber rites under the white sky. Victory was ours, but at a cost. The ranch bore scars, fences broken, a few cattle lost. That night, as stars wheeled overhead, Jack and I sat by the fire, exhaustion etching lines on our faces. "You fought like a true Westerner," he said, pulling me close. "I couldn't have done it without you." In that moment, with the embers glowing, I slipped the ring back on my finger. "Yes, Jack. I'll marry you." His kiss was tender, sealing our fates. The days that followed were a whirlwind of rebuilding, mending what was broken, strengthening bonds with neighbors who came to aid. Word of our stand against Black Bart spread, turning Jack into more of a hero and me into his fierce counterpart. We planned a simple wedding at Whispering Pines, inviting kin and cowboys alike. My uncle beamed, admitting he'd hoped for this match all along. As the ceremony approached, we rode out one last time before the vows, Thunder carrying us across the plains where it all began. The wind carried whispers of adventure, the horse's gait a rhythm of our shared heartbeat. "I've never ridden like this," I confessed, leaning back against him, "until you showed me how." He chuckled, nuzzling my neck. "And it'll only get better, wife." The wedding was a joyous affair, fiddles playing, laughter echoing, under a tent strung with lanterns. We exchanged vows as the sun set, promising forever in this wild paradise. But peace was fleeting. Scouts reported Bart had escaped custody, vowing revenge. Jack and I knew our life would be one of vigilance, but together, we were unbreakable. We honeymooned on the trail, driving cattle to market, my skills now matching his. Bandits ambushed us once, but we repelled them handily, our partnership a force of nature. Returning home, we built our legacy, expanding the ranch, welcoming a child into the world, a boy with Jack's eyes and my spirit. Years blurred into a tapestry of triumphs and trials, droughts weathered, bounties collected, love deepening with each sunrise. I'd arrived a city girl, but became a rancher's wife, riding through life with abandon. And as I look back, from our porch overlooking the endless frontier, I know this: the West doesn't just change you, it claims you, heart and soul. If this tale of passion, peril, and untamed love has stirred your spirit, dear reader, subscribe to for more epic adventures that transport you to the frontier's edge. Hit that button now, don't miss the next ride.